thank you all for agreeing to join me on the panel. The title is Navigating Uncertainty in the Airline Business. It's not new. This is an industry that has faced uncertainty continuously. But we face some new challenges. So let's start with this. There's a lot of geopolitical instability that we all have to navigate right now, whether it is regional conflicts, drone attacks, whatever it may be. And I'm just curious, from your standpoint, how you are trying to navigate this at your airlines. We've heard from Willie, from the IATA standpoint, but how do you go about this? Because one day you're able to overfly France, the next day you're not. One day you're able to operate your flights through a certain country, the next day you're not. It must drive you and your colleagues crazy.
Okay, I start?
Go ahead, yeah.
I think we live in a moment of a lot of uncertainty, but as Luis said before, aviation is territory of uncertainty long time ago. No? I remember that in 2019, and Willie was at that time at IAG, in the Capital Markets Day, we talk about resilience in aviation and how we were prepared for a downturn of the industry. At that time, we were talking about a decrease in passenger RASK of minus 10%, the flexibility we had, how we were going to respond. And after that, COVID came, and then we stopped the whole fleet. So we needed to survive the COVID, and after COVID, now we are stronger. And I think all of us, we are more agile to respond to this uncertainty that we live. So I think agility is the key, to have flexibility to go in one direction or the other. But I think we are in a situation that we have seen before, and we have shown how aviation can perform well in this environment.
Luis, Rodrigues, did COVID teach TAP how to be more nimble, more agile?
It was just
another. You were not there at the time.
It was just another event.
It was just another event?
Yes, a big one, but it was just another event. As Luis said, this is our daily life, right? It's not like right now this is weird timings. No, this has been gone since ever. I remember a long time ago I was taking an interview for a job with a totally different company and industry, and I asked the guy who was interviewing me, what makes you come to work every day? And he was not expecting the answer, but I never forgot it. He said, I come to work with a passion that I don't know what's going to happen today. And I never forgot that. And I think I've used that to my motto in this industry as well. I mean, every day we face stories, challenges different, and the only thing you need to do is to tell your people, we were talking about the youngsters when they come in, tell your people, if you're looking for a 9-to-5 job, this is not the place for you to come.
Right.
Okay? If you're looking for knowing what's going to happen in advance during the day or the week or the month, go and find somewhere else. This is not the way to work. So I think COVID was so big, it helped us, it made us being a little bit more humble and nimble and making sure we engage the people to survive, because if that was not the case, we wouldn't be here today. But it was just another event, a big one, that's for sure. It will happen again. I don't know when, how, which name, in what form, but I'm sure if there's something we know, it will happen again. And we will deal with it for sure, because this may not be a consistently profitable industry, but it's definitely a very resilient one.
Thank you. It's always a challenge in this industry to balance short-term versus long-term. And in the case of IAG, you're publicly held, you've got outside investors, and they have their expectations. As you look at this, aside from aircraft, Do we place the right emphasis on innovation in your organizations? And do we do a good enough job of balancing that need for innovation on a short-term versus long-term basis?
I think that what is important is the balance between investment and also the returns to the shareholders. So in our case, for example, now we are investing a lot in British Airways and Iberia. In the next 3 years, we are investing 7 billion in British Airways and 6 billion in Iberia. We are also investing in Aer Lingus and in Vueling. But the difficulty of this is not to invest, is to generate the cash enough to continue with the investment, to develop the business, and to generate return for the shareholders. So last year, we came back to dividend that we needed to stop because of the COVID. And also we announced a big buyback, 1 billion. So we continue with this plan that is invest in the business to have a more efficient business. Because you have a more efficient business, we are going to generate a lot of cash. And with this cash, we are going to remunerate the shareholders. So I think it's a virtuous cycle that must work.
Okay. Willie, I mean, IATA has pushed innovation for a long time, but do you think that there's the right balance between short-term and long-term focus?
Yeah, I think there is. You know, we're always looking at how can you transform the industry, and transformation is very difficult. But I think there is a sufficient focus on it. You know, as Luis, both of them have said, you know, you make a decision on an aircraft, it's a 25-year decision. In the 15 years I was at BA and IAG, I saw 4 versions of our premium business class seats in a 15-year period, you know, so and you think the development from the premium seat that was in BA when I first joined to the one that was in BA when I left, you know, they were significantly different. So I think there is this focus on always trying to be better. It is very difficult to get that balance between, you know, the pressure of being able to give a quarterly results presentation to analysts and investors and making a decision to invest for 25 years. And actually, sometimes the long-term decision is the easier decision to take rather than some of the short-term decisions that you're doing.
Why is that?
Well, because people, the investment community does tend to focus on the short-term issues, much more so than they do the long-term. They assume that you're making the right decision when you're buying a new aircraft type. They challenge you much more about some of the short-term decisions you're making around, you know, if you've changed the meal on the premium cabin between London and Paris. You know, it's amazing how you'll get more questions about that than you will on, you know, you've just ordered the A350 and you're spending a couple of billion on that. You know, I think as airline CEOs, you've got to do what's right for the business, whether that's short-term or long-term. And I think to be fair to the CEOs that I've known in the industry, they are very much focused on the long-term health and long-term sustainability of the airlines that they're working in.
Yeah. So you just mentioned the S word, sustainability, which is a great point. I just am curious, you know, climate targets are real. IATA has you know, encouraged the airline to be much more fuel efficient. And you know, it's not an easy task. We're all serious about decarbonization. Luis Rodrigues, I'd like you to start us off. You know, are you pleased with the progress that TAP or Portugal is able to make in meeting its sustainability objectives? You know, are you able to get the amount of sustainable aviation fuel you would like? Do you have the support from the government to help you get more, or to do the research to help the airline?
Yesterday there was an article on a leading financial newspaper that the title read something like, "Why or how come airlines and politicians gave up on sustainability?" I don't agree with that. At least as far as I'm concerned, TAP is concerned, and I think I speak for my colleagues as well, we have not given up on anything. On the contrary. But there's a limit to what we can do. We can't produce SAF. We can't produce new engines. We can't stop flying shorter routes for connectivity. We can't invest in railways. And I think we've been doing everything at our disposal, everything that we can leverage on to keep pushing the sustainability agenda forward. If you ask me, am I happy with what we're doing at TAP? The answer is yes and no. I'm happy with what we're doing. I'm not happy because we're not progressing fast enough, because it's beyond our control. And unfortunately, Brussels has given the wrong incentives to the wrong agencies. And we have not seen enough SAF, enough affordable SAF. We're not seeing enough engine technology moving up. And those are the things that we are the front, at the end line. There's nothing we can do, but we're doing everything that we can, is within our limits, to keep pushing the sustainability agenda forward.
You know, when you all have the conversations with the engine makers about new generation aircraft or engines that would be more fuel efficient, whether it's SAF or something else, what's their response? I mean, do they just say, yeah, fine, whatever? I mean, do they listen, actively listen to what you are saying, or are they ignoring us?
No, I think the problem we have is that the airline community, we understand that we need to decarbonize aviation, or we decarbonize aviation, or we will not have aviation. But the problem is that the incentives are wrong, because as Luis is saying, we are doing whatever is in our hand to decarbonize aviation. We cannot do anything else. Even we are doing things that we don't have to do. So for example, we are investing in plants to produce SAF, first generation, second generation, third generation. It's not our business. So what we want is SAF to put on the aircraft, and then to reduce the CO2 emissions. What we want is more efficient engines, but the problem is, I think they don't have the incentives to produce something faster, because they are making money with the situation that we have now. That's my point of view. And also it's true that to develop a new product, it takes a lot of time. So the problem is, if you start developing a new product, maybe it's a new product that is going to be in the market in 15 years. So I understand it's not easy for them to try to lead in some way the change, because they don't know what's going to be the future. So we saw that some manufacturers, they were saying that we were going to have a hydrogen aircraft in 2035. But now everybody is delaying the ambition, because it's not going to be so easy. So I think the challenge is, how do we change from this generation of aircraft to the hydrogen? If hydrogen is the future, what do we do in the middle? So I understand the complexity, but what is clear is that the commitment from the airlines is 100%.
Well, you have been keeping IATA on track in terms of encouraging the airlines to meet decarbonization goals. You've been the face of the industry to government agencies, Brussels, Washington, elsewhere. But do you feel that we are still sometimes being forced to do more than we need to do against other sectors, industries, whether it's agriculture or ground transportation, commercial vehicles, personal vehicles, et cetera?
Yeah, without question, that is the case. And the argument has always been, although we're a relatively small contributor today, our contribution will be much more significant in the future as other industries do decarbonize, because there's easier options for them. But if you look at it, this year, so the industry is forecast to make a net profit of 36 billion this year, 3.7% margin. But the industry will pay 1 billion on CORSIA and 4 billion on SAF. Now, most of that will actually fall to the European carriers, because they are predominantly exposed to CORSIA and SAF. So there's 5 billion additional cost on the industry. Much of that actually is higher than it should be because of the lack of commitment on other parts of the industry. The transition to net zero is going to be extremely challenging and extremely expensive. And it's not good that other players in the so-called value chain expect the industry, the airline industry, to pick up the bill. So when you hear of OEMs committed to net zero in 2050, they're committed so long as the airline industry pays the bill. The engine manufacturers are committed to net zero in 2050 so long as the airlines pay the bill. Because the bill is going to be paid for, it's to acquire SAF. That's 2/3, 70% of the abatement will come from SAF. Only a small proportion will come through improved technology from the engines and the airframe manufacturers. So, if we're genuinely to achieve this, we're going to have to see much more. But the one that really upsets us is the fuel companies, the people who are creating the problem in the first place, because it's the fuel that's generating the CO2. They're making additional profit on the back of this transition. So in Europe, because of the mandate, the blending mandate, what we're seeing is that the fuel suppliers are charging what they call a compliance premium, or to fulfill their obligations to meet the mandate. They're charging airlines actually more than the cost of SAF. We reckon it's probably twice the price differential between kerosene and SAF. And the fuel companies are doing this because they're a monopoly supplier. They know that they can charge pretty much anything they like because airlines don't have a choice to go to an alternative supplier. So, I think Europe in particular needs to seriously reevaluate some of the decisions they've made, because the mandate is not proving to be successful at generating additional supply. It is proving to drive up prices, but it's not having much of an impact in terms of accelerating the supply of SAF. So I think there is a need to look at all of the decisions that have been taken and to challenge whether we're getting the desired result. And I don't think these mandates are getting the desired result. So it's going to be really challenging unless everybody is heading in the same direction. And so far, we're not seeing evidence of that.
Do you feel that airlines get the respect they deserve in Brussels, whether it's related to SAF or air traffic navigation or anything else?
I think, I think to be fair, A4E in Europe does a really good job. At IATA, we're boosting our team in relation to our interaction with Europe because we recognize we need to do more to get the message across there. And I think it is important that we are shining the light on all of these issues, particularly in relation to the performance of fuel suppliers, for example. If you're a regulator in Europe, you should be embarrassed by what's happening. That they're facilitating price gouging, fuel companies to price gouge the airlines in the name of environmental performance. That's not right, that's not acceptable. If we're to spend money, then the money should be spent on genuinely improving the environmental performance. If you're a regulator in Europe and you're seeing the waste caused by inefficient air traffic control, you should be ashamed. So here we are, airlines spending more money, and really all it's doing is compensating for the inefficiency that exists in the system that could be addressed through a more efficient ATC environment, a greater focus on the problem of fuel suppliers and what it is they're doing, and many other issues as well. So, I think there is an argument for us to be stronger and louder in Europe in particular, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Moving a slightly different direction, there are clearly changes in the traveler market. You are seeing new generations of travelers coming into the marketplace. Baby boomers are living longer, healthier lives. They want to travel. People have different ways of shopping and so on. And I'm just curious, how are you seeing the customers change, and what are your airlines? I'm going to ask this of Luis Rodrigues and Luis Gallego. How are you evolving how your airlines go to market to meet the demands of this, constantly evolving, very divergent group of customers that all of your airlines serve?
If there's one thing you need to do is you need to be every day on the airport looking at what's happening and balance that with the numbers and with the studies that you get. One of the things that yesterday I went through Heathrow and Lisbon. One of the things that is obvious these recent years is more, just to pick up one segment, more older people traveling and more people who needs assistance. That means a slight disruption to the boarding and to the process of boarding the plane. I don't think our airports are well equipped to do that overall, and I don't think we have enough people and enough systems to do that properly. Because if this is going to delay, and it is a very much welcome group, obviously, if this is going to delay the boarding process, we're going to have the problems that we have more and more. It's another one. But there's no magic answer to that other than being constantly watchful of what is going on, who's traveling with you, and looking at your miles card and the data from your people, and noticing that I do a lot of mystery shopping, if you will. That's the good thing of traveling unknown, is you are treated like every other passenger, particularly in other airlines. In TAP is more difficult, and I'm sure Luis is more difficult in IAG. But yeah, you see this process. You need to be constantly there and to think through how am I going to cope with this. And this problem of mobility in the airports, particularly in Lisbon, concerns us a lot, because the airport equipment are not prepared to do that, and we need to adapt very fast.
Luis?
I think the most important thing always is to ask to the customer what they want, not to assume what we think they want. In IAG, the good thing of our model is that we have different types of airlines. So we have network carriers, we have a value carrier that is Aer Lingus, we have low-cost carriers like Vueling, Level, etc. And the profile of the customer is totally different. So it's good because we learn from each other. Because it's not the same what a passenger flying point to point from Barcelona requires that a passenger flying long haul from Heathrow to New York, no? So what we try is, again, to ask the passenger to have a segmentation of the different groups of customers, and to try to deliver the most seamless experience that we can have.
Okay. But at the same time, airlines like Vueling is concentrated in Spain and Southern Europe. A customer couldn't fly Vueling, let's say, from Manchester to Lyon or something. I mean, so how do you handle the customer, serve customers there, where you may not have a specific brand with that niche?
We have, as I said, different brands to attend different segments, and I think, for example, now we have in London BA Euroflyer that they are attending the segment of low-cost point to point from Gatwick, something that we changed the model and now is delivering good results. But in the group we have short haul, for example, to fit the big hubs that we have, but also we have point-to-point operation where we compete with the low-cost carriers and ultra-low-cost carriers. And then what you have to offer to the customer is totally different. So we try to adapt in some way the proposal to the profile of the customer and what they need.
Okay. So as you all are looking at the commercial outlook, do you think that the next 12 to 18 months will be as good as 2025 has been, better, not as good?
It's difficult to say. I think what we have seen, for example, in our case is we had a very strong first quarter. After the Liberation Day, we saw a lot of volatility in the market. It's very difficult to have a trend. You were talking before about the economy segment. We saw that the people, because of the uncertainty, they stop flying. Not stop flying. They reduce the number of flights in comparison with a very strong quarter that was the first quarter. But we didn't see, for example, that weakness in the premium cabins. As Willie said, when we talk about premium cabins, we are not talking only about corporate traffic. We are talking also people flying premium for leisure. That is a segment that is very strong and even stronger after the COVID. So in our case, for example, and you need to combine all that with the fuel price, with the FX. So when you put everything together, it's difficult to have a prediction. In our case, we maintain the outlook that we had for the year, and we see a positive recovery in the economy in cabin North Atlantic, because transatlantic is very strong in any case. South Atlantic, sorry.
Okay. Great. Luis?
No, I agree. We are being moderately conservative, slightly optimistic, but I think you can no longer look at the world as one and everything moving into the right direction, the same trend, because if you do that, you're going to miss a lot of things, for good and for bad. So this requires a more granular approach and understanding that there are sectors where I'm going to suffer, struggle. There are sectors where I'm going to have a great business and I need to move the resources in between them to be able to take advantage of both situations. So overall, how does that end up overall? No crystal ball. But we're not, if you ask me, are you expecting 5% overall growth? No.
Okay. So when you all are looking against this uncertain outlook, how do you go about prioritizing your investments in things like technology? Again, World Aviation Festival is a heavy technology-focused event. How do you go about prioritizing or deprioritizing your technology investments, knowing that some of these are going to be longer-term versus shorter-term efforts?
I think it's a discussion between long-term, because this is a long-term industry, and balance. It's the word that both of my colleagues have used, and I think that what got us here to this position is the ability to balance all of these concepts and ideas. Graveyards are full of laggards as much as they are full of innovators. And I think we need to, area by area, Luis was mentioning they're looking at 9 different areas. Area by area, we need to have a tailored approach because not all of them will behave the same way. So if you ask me overall, I think we're moving forward. Technology is there. We need to take advantage of it. In all sectors at the same time? Absolutely not. There are things that still require and will require for a long term a human touch. There are things that can be, technology can help significantly. The way we are approaching technology to start with, at least in TAP, is how is that going to help increase the productivity of our people? What we're not doing is, how is that going to replace headcount? Not at this stage. At this stage, we're looking for how can we produce better work, do more work with the same resources. And I think that is the main principle that has been guiding our technology investments.
I think that we were talking before about the different types of customers that we have, but also in IAG we have a more balanced group now between the north and the south. So the weight of the hubs that we have in the south of Europe is stronger than the weight that we had previously. So the good thing is that we operate in North Atlantic, South Atlantic, intra-Europe mainly. And what we see is maybe when we see some weakness in one of the markets, other markets are working very well. And for example, I said before, Latin American market now is doing very well. We see a market for growth. And also, the good thing is that now the profit of Iberia is 3 times the profit that we had previous to the COVID. So I think to have a group diversified helps to navigate this uncertainty.
Willie, from your standpoint, short-term versus long-term?
Yeah, well, you know, the industry is going to be here next year and the industry is going to be here 20 years from now. So, you know, I think airlines that are in business today will be confident that they're going to be in business in 20 years' time. You know, Luis said it's, you know, the structure may be different, but they're still going to be operating. And therefore, I think most airline CEOs will continue to focus on, will I have the right aircraft in 20 years' time? Because if you want to have the right aircraft in 20 years' time, you're going to have to start ordering them pretty soon, given the long lead-in that we're seeing. But the fascinating thing, in terms of our industry, we're always exposed to global GDP. Global GDP this year is going to be in the order of 3%, which is actually quite healthy. Forecasts for next year, at the moment, are slightly above 3%, which again should be quite healthy. Now, how you get to that 3% will be very different. So as Luis said, having a portfolio of products and being able to shift when you see one market stronger than the other is going to be important. But here's something that I found fascinating, and I would have got these figures wrong, but somebody was asking me about airline startups. In the past 10 years, up to the end of 2024, globally we saw 408 new airlines start in that period. So in the 10 years up to the end of December 2024, 408 airlines started. In the same period, 420 airlines failed. So we're net minus 12 over the last 10 years. Now, some of those that started are in business today, some of those that started failed. So it's not the case that every new airline that started failed. But this is a remarkably resilient industry. And I think most airline CEOs will continue to focus on making the right decisions for the long term. And that was the case even during COVID. You didn't see solely short-term decisions. Yes, there were a lot of decisions, particularly around cash conservation, because that was critical. But airlines were still committing to new aircraft, we're still committing to SAF, we're still committing to what I would see as longer-term decisions, investment in technology. All of those decisions didn't stop during COVID. They continued. So there was a combination of short and long term. But the focus, I think, will continue to be on the long-term demands of the industry, which I believe actually is going to be quite healthy. I look, it's easy for me, I'm not an airline CEO, so I can be a lot more optimistic. But I look at the environment that we're operating in today, and the dollar for most airlines is a critical currency, and most airlines are short dollar. The dollar has weakened by about 9 to 10% this year, which for most non-US airlines is a positive.
Yeah.
Fuel, average Brent this year is $70 a barrel, which is a positive. Jet hasn't quite fallen as much as crude, but it has reduced as well. GDP is okay. Demand for travel continues to be good. You look at Canada, so Canadians definitely slowed down traveling to the US, but they didn't stop flying. And therefore Canadian Airlines just moved capacity from US markets into Mexico and the Caribbean and Europe, where demand has grown significantly. So, as an industry, we can respond to the short-term changes. We will continue to be influenced by significant issues like the strength of the dollar, the price of oil, global GDP. These are big factors. And quite honestly, they've probably been a positive for the industry this year, and quite possibly should be a positive next year as well.
One thing that we seem to be struggling with is recruiting more younger people to consider careers in aviation management. There are lots of people who want to be pilots, cabin crew, mechanics, but convincing them that they should consider careers working in the marketing department of an airline, or the IT department of an airline, or the finance department of an airline, or something like that has been more difficult. I'm just curious, what are you doing to Luis Rodrigues and Luis Gallego, what are you doing at your organizations to bring more people in, to elevate the interest in airline management careers and keep the smart people in your organizations?
I think in some way we are lucky because we have a strong brands, and the people they want to work for strong brands. And also at a group level, you have the possibility to start in one airline and to have different roles in different airlines with different models. So you can develop your career inside the group. You can start, I don't know, in Iberia Express, go to Vueling, from Vueling to Aer Lingus, and then maybe at the end, I don't know, you are in Iberia or British Airways. So I think that's important for the people, the development. I think also we are working to develop internal talent, but also to capture young talent from the street. And we have several programs, not only for pilots, cabin crew, technicians. What for us is more difficult now is to hire people for jobs, for example, at the airport. I think this summer was a tough summer. Weather didn't help, for example, and now it's more difficult to hire people to do, in some way, jobs at the platform and those type of jobs. But pilots, for example, we are okay, and the pipeline that we have is good.
No, very much the same. I mean, there was a time, obviously, when you wouldn't need to do anything because they would come up and want to work in the industry. I think those days are gone. Not because it's less attractive, but there's more competition overall for talent. I mean, what we keep on doing is the concept of a career is probably a little bit outdated these days. But the fact that this remains the key challenge that they could have across their entire professional lives is definitely something that youngsters still feel attracted to. The ability to move within a very diverse number of areas and functions, because the industry is made of that, is also very attractive. But as Luis is mentioning, getting people to work in the airports, and we don't have that much because we don't do the handling at this stage, but we know from our partners that getting people to work at the airport is a much tougher environment because it's a tough life. They don't make that much money and they work hard. So I think we need to give them a hand. Be careful with that, because otherwise, if there's no people helping at the airport level, and I was talking about before, boarding gates and helping wheelchairs, I think that's going to be a challenge.
You know, the opposite side is I've heard people say this industry is too insular. That people start out, they come to the industry because they're passionate about it, which is great. They may be born into it, which is fine, but we struggle to bring in people with different perspectives, maybe mid-career, because they look around and they're like, no, there's no risk-taking here. Nobody wants to be innovative. Nobody is willing to challenge long-established processes, and this is especially true when it comes to technology-related activities. How do we counter that? What do we need to do? How do we become less insular than we may be accused of?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I don't see that in the industry. And certainly in my career, I've seen many people from outside the industry being recruited in, which I think is very healthy. I think we're still a very exciting industry, a very challenging industry and exciting industry, and I would agree, the concept of a career has changed. Pilots tend to have careers because they get locked into a seniority system, and therefore it makes it very difficult to move. But certainly my experience of working at Aer Lingus, British Airways, IAG, we've had a good mix of recruitment through the business and recruitment into the business. And I think having that mix has proven to be very healthy. And I think that's the industry that I see. So I would slightly disagree with you in terms of us being insular. I think we are open to bringing in talent from outside. And I think that's always been a positive, actually. It helps us when we get people who will come in and challenge us as to why we're doing things, which is always important as well.
I agree. I think part of the transformation we are having consists on bringing people outside of the industry, because we want to have people that they see the things in a different way. Because usually when you are seeing the problem with the same eyes your complete life, it's difficult to do something, a radical change. And the people, they want to join aviation. So we are not having problems. We are having some problems, for example, with, to be honest, with salaries. Because, for example, in Europe, we don't compete very well with the salaries they receive in the States or even in some Latin companies. So to capture talent in Europe is not so easy if you compare with other parts in the world.
Luis Rodrigues, you've actually had a very diverse professional career. You've worked in advertising, you've been in education, you ran a business school. I mean, so you define the kind of person who has had that very varied professional experience and coming into the airline business at least twice. Do you think that that makes you stronger as a leader?
I can't answer that directly. I think so, but I was thinking about what Willie was saying, and what you were asking about insular. I don't think we are an insular industry. I think this is not for everybody. This is a resilient industry because it's made of resilient people that are sitting here. On average, you can be sure that you're better than average, because if you wouldn't be here. That's very clear. Now, again, as I said before, if you're looking for a 9-to-5 job, go and find it somewhere else. So only the strong will survive. I think that's the motto to this group of people here that love the challenge. It is good if you have an opportunity at some point in time to go and look somewhere else, to come back and say how strong and how resilient and how powerful this is. And do we lack innovation? I don't think so. It comes at a price, and the price is we are the safest means of transport in the world, period. And nothing is going to put that at risk. If you're willing to move within those boundaries, you're more than welcome, fine. But that's the number one mantra that Luis has, I have, Willie has, and period. Given that envelope, everybody's more than welcome.
So as we wrap up, one question for you. What are each of you most proud of in terms of your professional accomplishments in the airline business? Luis Gallego, start.
Well, it's difficult because I have been involved in a lot of things, but maybe the transformation that we could do in Iberia, I think it was a huge challenge, and I think it's delivering results. So I think the team is very proud of what we did.
Great. Luis Rodrigues.
I would go along those lines. I think thinking about what we've been through the last few years since 19, I think we now have a very strong team composed of a lot of diverse characters. We managed to transform the company, transform the image that the company has, partially transformed because the transformation process never ends. So we are sort of halfway through it. And I think getting to that level where the shareholder, the government in this case, decided it is the right moment to be part of a larger group, it's a compliment on itself to the entire TAP team that has been working.
Willie?
Well, I'm now in my 47th year in this industry, so
Jesus Christ.
I've had a lot of pain and a lot of fun. Probably the one that was both painful and fun at the same time was that closure of European airspace during the so-called volcanic ash. So helping to bring an end to that nonsense. Volcano. Helping to bring an end to that nonsense and reopening the skies. I think that was a fun moment.
Okay, great. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in thanking the panelists?
Thank you.
Luis Gallego, Luis Rodrigues, Willie Walsh. Terrific conversation. Gentlemen, thank you very much.